This is the Baltimore City Public Schools VEX Robotics Loyola EdTech internship for Lawrence Totty. The nature of the internship is to what we're going to do with VEX Robotics. Baltimore City Public Schools operates three robotics programs: VEX EDR for middle to high school, VEX IQ for upper grade elementary to middle school, and Lego Mindstorms for the lower grade elementary schools. My focus will be on the VEX EDR, or the metallic VEX robotics. This is for students aged 13 to 18, middle through high school, and there is a collegiate version of this called VEX U that uses the VEX EDR platform. The traditional Baltimore City Public Schools format is that new VEX coaches or teachers that have agreed to start a VEX team at their school with the cooperation of the principal. There's forms to be filled out and agreements to be met as regard attendance and support for transportation. These new coaches meet for a week in late August to learn about the new challenge and to build prototype robots for their students to use and learn from and maybe emulate. It's an excellent week of training that occurs annually for the past 10 years. My name is Lawrence Totty. I'm a math teacher at Dunbar High School. I've been there since 2006, and I have coached the VEX and FIRST robotics team for a 7-year period, and then restarted again this school year. 2018-19 is a very important year for VEX robotics. There's obviously the normal competition that they have every year. The name changes every year, the rules change every year. But this year, they're rolling out a new control system called V5. The 2018-19 game is called Turning Point, and this year the game is the second game type that advocates robot-produced projectiles, which is something that VEX Robotics was always a weak point in their system as far as creating projectiles for robots to shoot across the field. That was never the best method of scoring. And so this is the second time in 4 years they've decided to create a game where using a projectile or shooting across the field was a ideal strategy. The other big change, the V5 system, is that there's a new control system available, and this is the first time in the last 8 years that VEX has made an update to their control system, which includes the CPU, the motors, the new batteries, a new interface for the controller, and that now requires a change in programming skill, which we'll talk about later. My internship is a two-sided approach. On the first side, the students, is that my goal was to have students begin to produce videos detailing their progress and to become experts in how to build VEX components and VEX mechanisms for their robots, and sort of share that information using videos with either their own YouTube channel, or they could upload videos to the Baltimore City Communications Department, whom could edit or post their video on the official Baltimore City Schools Robotics website. On the teacher side, the goal was to have teachers participate in web conferences or webinars to advance knowledge of complicated topics in robotics to help them improve their practice. And by improving their practice, ultimately the students will build better and more competitive robots, and also learn more advanced topics in programming and build more elaborate physical experiments. Basically build mechanisms that are more complex, that can do greater activities. Lift higher, lift taller, move more complex objects, shoot, create the projectiles that are desired. And so this will require more advanced and timely professional development to the coaches. Student teams that were interested in video creation received a tripod that would fit mobile devices. And then, as I mentioned, videos can be posted to various hosting sites or submitted to the official Baltimore City Public Schools communications team, which can be edited and hosted on their site. Coaches would receive a free V5 system from the robotics director for Baltimore City Schools after they registered their team and submitted the voucher that was issued to returning VEX teams that renewed for the 2018-19 school year. They received a discount voucher, and also if they were to trade in their V4 or their Cortex system, they would get a steep discount into the new V5 system. Besides the obtaining of the new system, there's a conversion or a migration process going from Cortex V4 to the new V5 system that requires troubleshooting and expertise beyond what coaches are used to or what the professional development for VEX would normally entail. Teams that indicated an interest were given a mobile device tripod to use to help them get stable, usable video, and then they were told that they should use an app that worked with their mobile device. For example, if they were using an iOS product, iMovie, they would get a short tutorial. There wasn't any time in this iteration to do a formal PD or a formal training for the students as to using iMovie to create videos or how to do so on YouTube. Some students have already had experience in posting videos and using editing tools that are already available on their devices. Engagement for the coaches or the teacher PD was that as new coaches are introduced into robotics, they have professional development sessions called Jumpstart training sessions. They're held on Saturdays in September, October for VEX EDR and VEX IQ. And so a survey was distributed to each Jumpstart participant using a QR code in late September. By the end of the internship, I want to have students confident in sharing their robot building and programming expertise via video and creating new videos. I also want to have a new routine for coaches and teachers to be able to reach out for support and be supported in a more timely manner, not just by the robotics director and academic content liaison, but by other coaches via web conferences or webinars. These are the two surveys provided to each robotics group, the VEX EDR and the VEX IQ session that are survey that gave coaches options to discuss what they wanted to talk about in their potential webinars. We scheduled the webinars using data from the surveys. The first one was planned and held on November 7th. The topic of the first webinar was programming. A second webinar will be held in the coming weeks about adapting to the VR system. After the second webinar, a survey will be given for coaches to indicate when would they want to have a third webinar and what would that topic be about. For the webinars, we're limited to the options we can use. Blackboard Collaborate is a webinar web conference video option that is officially under contract with Baltimore City Public Schools. It's a part of the Blackboard Learn suite, which is provided to all teachers and students to use with their classes, but also can be used for delivering PD, and has been used to do so in the previous school year. This year, Baltimore City has approved use for Google Classroom and the Google Apps for Education, and so Google Hangouts and YouTube Live are options that have been that are not officially supported, but they may not be limited. There has not been discussion as to whether or not YouTube Live is viable. There's been no advice or advisory from the communications department or the IT department within Baltimore City as far as which suite is the preferred option for web conferences, but any webinars have been issued via Blackboard Collaborate, and so until otherwise noted, it's Blackboard Collaborate is the default option. The first webinar, we partnered with the Baltimore City Robotics Director Gino Tegete. We were able to provide programming help to a coach that needed it. The first webinar was to basically introduce the coaches to this new process of having a webinar and being able to do this and test this out. Basically, coaches could log in from their homes or even from within the school, um, and be able to ask questions. I was the host of the webinar, and Mr. Tagate was one of the presenters, and he also moderated and helped and answered questions and shared his screen and this expertise with programming to the coaches that needed help. Second webinar will be focused on migration to the V5 control system. Um, for this, I would have collaboration from Ben Colby and Rob Hughes, which are coaches at the Baltimore Leadership School for Young Women. Their team 5770, has already migrated to the V5 control system, and so they've been putting together a presentation on their experiences with that new system. There's a lot of challenges and new experiences that coaches who are even experienced or new to VEX robotics would have to learn and adapt to. Um, there's a new programming environment. The system itself is much more advanced, more powerful. The power system is different. There's many things that the coaches would find completely different from what they were doing earlier this school year to now what they would start using at the end of the school year to next school year. Um, and so this is the year. This year, it's important that these teams adapt the V5 system this year, because the discount right now is being offered until the end of 2018. December 31st is when the discount for the new system expires, and so it is incumbent upon these new teams to get this new system as soon as possible and then try to use it. It's competitively advantageous to use the new system because it does things faster, with more precision, and gives them more access to control over their robot. We would want to make protocol changes. This is the goal of the teacher webinar. Current protocol is that VEX coaches may get an in-person visit from the academic content liaison / robotics director upon request or at routine visits that are scheduled. And then there's the training for the new coaches on Saturdays September through November, which also includes in-person programming support. And the suggested new protocol is that the same routine visits occur with assistance or just a regular visit from the robotics director, and the Saturday training would still happen for the new coaches who may not have built a robot before or need to more practice in building a robot. But for the programming sessions, writing advanced programs may be something that can be done with more frequent sessions during the month or the weeks leading up to competition through webinars or web conferences held by experienced coaches that can be done from their home or done from their school using the internet, of course, and they can share their screen experience and then use whatever tools that are available to connect to other coaches. This change for programming specifically because the new system that's going to be adopted requires more detailed programming knowledge, more in-depth programming understanding, and especially if we were to teach it to our students, which is what the goal is at both the middle school and high school level, for the high school students to learn this more professional coding style, they're going to have to engage in a new suite of learning about coding, and so they would have to learn about object-oriented programming. To continue the updated protocol, an ideal time to start would be when the new game is released for the 2019-2020 school year, which is normally in late April, following the VEX World Championship. And then in mid to late May, the first webinars or screencasts and updates could be posted to the robotics PLC. Normally around this time, teams that are experienced or not veterans are recruiting new members to who wants to join their team for the next coming school year, and have the first. And actually, the first competition is normally held in the Baltimore area in Towson in June of that same school, end of school year. So the last weekend of school, the last 2 weekends of school, there's at least one VEX competition for the new game for the first teams that have gotten their robot ready for the new game. Another change to the protocol would be to either update the robotics PLC page, or create a Google Classroom, which is a part of the new rollout of Google Classroom and the Google Apps for Education in Baltimore City Public Schools. Is that the Office of Teaching and Learning, for their content liaisons, they have created Google Classrooms for each content area, and within the subjects of their content area to push out different assignments as far as discussion starters and curriculum breakdowns and deep dives into what's being taught on a weekly to semi-monthly basis, and then sort of it feeds into the collaborative planning that goes on currently within Baltimore City Public Schools, that these guides are pushed out to teachers via the Google Classroom application. There could be a Google Classroom class created for robotics, VEX Robotics and VEX IQ, which can push out information about new updates, share videos, for links to videos about essentially what's been sent in a newsletter by the robotics director can be now converted into a Google Classroom where teachers can see when it's been updated and then click in to participate or see the video or add comments or make posts in the stream. That would be a change that would be implemented for the next iteration. For the migration to the V5 system, special care has to be done in this process, which is why it garners more professional development, is because when VEX introduced the V4 system in spring of 2010, there were many bugs and a failure rate of almost 25% in the early models. It was a change in the control system using some of the similar old components and an update to a USB programming interface, and it also used Wi-Fi connection to control the robots. Well, there was a design flaw that was causing a failure rate of 25%, and so in the following year, they redesigned it and they offered a 100% discount for teams that had bought the previously 2010 Cortex system to get an updated 2011 version by just sending back in, returning via mail the Wi-Fi keys and Wi-Fi adapters and the robot brains they had purchased the year before. They would get a replacement version for each one they sent in, or severely discounted. And so for V5, we would expect to see a similar approach if there is a redesign that occurs because of a severe design flaw or something that hasn't been tested and phased out or corrected, or can't be corrected during firmware updates or software updates, that is a fatal issue or a fatal flaw, that they may issue a severe discount and a buyback or a return policy that allows teams to get new or replacement materials that are updated and have the flaw fixed at a severe discount or for free just by returning the stuff that has been purchased. I want to thank you for watching the video. I want to thank Mr. Tegete, Gino Tegete of Baltimore City Baltimore City Public Schools Robotics Director, for assisting, as well as Ben Colby and Rob Hughes for their participation in the webinars. Thank you.